Here we are with my first ever ultimate weapon guide for the shotguns of Modern Warfare. Now what makes it ultimate is I've done extensive testing on most of these attachments and measured as much as I could to find out what the best possible attachments and class setups would be for the gun. For the first guide, I'm going to start with the Model 680 shotgun, which is my personal favorite shotgun of the game. We're going to go over some good attachments all the way from grips to slugs, and the tricky part here is that you can make guns work better in some ways and worse in others. For instance, I can make a highly mobile class that is a lot weaker than, say, a slower, more deadly type of class at a range. So I'll do my best to work through all of that and make sure I can provide a good class for each of those kind of playstyles as well. Now, all of the data I have collected is in fact hand tested in Davinci Resolve, which is a video editing program, which is free by the way, at 60 frames per second. Also, if you want to skip to a certain part of the testing, I will leave timestamps in the video below. First off, I wanted to go over the damage of each of the barrels, specifically the one-shot kill range. These are all done by aiming down sights. Now, for those of you who do not know, aiming down your sight with a shotgun tightens the pellet spread in this game, and this is especially true for the 680. These pictures show the range of the base barrels with no attachments. You can see that the Sport has the best one-shot kill range, but the Liberator is not half bad with a decent one-shot kill range as well. As for the SWAT barrel, or what I call the baby barrel, you can see it's got a pretty pitiful one-shot kill range in this game. It does give you a great mobility bonus and a lot better aim down sights time and movement speed as well, but it also gives you a wider pellet spread, which in my opinion is not great, and it really kills the one-shot kill range for this gun. So it makes this attachment very difficult to use and almost useless in a lot of ways. You want to maximize your one-shot kill potential with little to no downsides in movement, and despite the movement buffs you get with the SWAT, it's just simply too weak for me to run as a primary attachment. So right off the bat, I do not recommend using the SWAT barrel in most situations. Now, one thing to consider when you choose these barrels is also the aim down sights time, because this is an important part of using a shotgun. Through the hand testing I've done, I found that the larger the barrel, as you would imagine, the aim down sights time is increased slightly. For example, the Liberator, which is my personal choice barrel, is about 21 frames or 350 milliseconds of ADS time. Now the Sport, which is the largest barrel, is about 24 frames of ADS time or about 400 milliseconds. Now the SWAT is at around 17 frames or 283 milliseconds. This, of course, can be helped or hindered based on the attachments that affect ADS time, ADS meaning aim down sights, which is a lot. There are a lot of attachments that help and also take away from aim down sights time, so we'll try to go over some of those as well in this episode. Now we're going to go over some of the muzzle attachments. The way I see it, there are two attachments here that you should be concerned about. There's the choke, and then there's the FSS suppressor. The choke condenses pellet spread both while aiming down sights and while hip firing, but not as significantly as you might think it would. Also, the FSS suppressor tightens pellet spread as well, and based on my testing, the spread of both the choke and the FSS are virtually the same. There is virtually no difference. Now, both the choke and the suppressor feature a tighter pellet spread, but the FSS does have more damage range and it does have a tighter pellet spread as well, and they both also have a penalty to your aim down sights time. So why would you ever run the choke over the FSS just looking at this? Well, as it turns out, the FSS does increase pellet spread tightness, and yes, it does increase one-shot kill ranges for each barrel by give or take around 4 feet or so. However, the FSS reduces your aim down sights time by a little bit more than just the choke on its own. For example, the Liberator barrel aim down sights at around 21 frames or 350 milliseconds. The suppressor adds about 2 frames to this time, meaning it would take closer to 383 milliseconds. The choke only adds around 1 frame, give or take, so it would take more about 367 milliseconds instead. This means that I would use the FSS suppressor to complement a long-range build for the gun, whereas if I want to remain mobile and get my shots on target a little bit quicker, I would opt more for the choke. Of course, the suppressor does muffle your gun shot, but that isn't particularly useful in this game considering there's no real traditional minimap. So now that we've covered the barrels and the important muzzle attachments, let's take a look at sprint out times as well as the lasers and how they affect them. Now, if you do not already know, sprint out time is the time it takes to get from sprinting to firing your gun. Not aiming, but just firing the gun by pressing the trigger. So generally, you want a really fast sprint out time in order to be more snappy and get shots off a lot quicker. The base sprint out time for the 680 shotgun, meaning no attachments whatsoever, is around 267 milliseconds. The only attachments to help with sprint out time for this particular shotgun are the red and the green laser. The red laser does in fact help reduce your sprint out time, and with it, it bumps it up to about 250 milliseconds. This is not a great improvement really at all. However, the green hipfire laser significantly helps by reducing it to about 167 milliseconds, which is definitely a big improvement. The downside, of course, to this laser is that now you're visible to anyone on the map really with that giant obnoxious green laser. With that being said, I really highly recommend using the green laser, the hipfire one, on this shotgun. The difference is night and day, and the hipfire is so condensed that it really makes hip firing a lot more accurate, so long as you are as well. So whatever class you want to make, you need to run this laser in my opinion. Something worth mentioning is that I kitted this gun out with all possible attachments to increase range and limit mobility, but no matter what I did, the sprint out time remained the same as long as I had that green laser on. So no matter what, as long as you have this green laser equipped, your sprint out time will always be the same, and it will always be 167 milliseconds. Now, there are actually two green lasers. The one I was talking about is the one for hip firing or sprint to fire speed, but there is another one, and this one is known as the tack laser. It helps improve ADS speed pretty well and a few other things, but I was curious to see if this might make pellet spread tighter or anything like that. But after testing it, I can say for sure it does not. I honestly do not recommend running this laser over the other green laser because sprint out time is much more important than getting that little boost to your aim down sights time, specifically with this shotgun. If the tack laser improved sprint out time as well, it may be useful, but as it stands now, there is no true reason really to use that tack laser over the other laser, which increases your sprint out time. Up next, I wanted to go over some of the stock attachments. Now, right off the bat, I will 100% say that the no stock attachment is the one that you should be running with this shotgun. It gives you the benefit of faster movement, along with a faster aim down sights time. The problem with the stock is it increases idle sway and recoil. However, recoil is generally not an issue with a pump action shotgun because even though they do have kick, by the time your gun is pumped and ready to fire again, your sights have came back down to where you were originally aimed. As for idle sway, or stability as the game calls it, this is not an important feature as well for shotguns like the 680, given the nature of how the spread of a shotgun works, and it doesn't require the utmost pinpoint accuracy at the distances you'd be using the gun, as if say you were using a sniper rifle. Now, if you're going to be using the slug attachment, or if you're going to be using this gun at really long ranges, which I really do not recommend at all, then it might come in handy because then you won't have as much idle sway when you're aiming. But in my opinion, this is the incorrect way to use this shotgun, and I wholly advised against doing it. Now we're going to talk about the grips. The way I see it, there are two grips that you should be concerned with, which are the Merc foregrip and the XRK True Grip Tactical Grip. Now, looking at both of these attachments, you'll see they do virtually the same thing. However, I did test these out, and it turns out that the XRK grip does increase your A down sight speed by about 1 frame more than the Merc foregrip, which isn't huge, but it can be noticeable. Of course, the downsides to each of these grips is the movement speed penalty. With the XRK grip, you are moving slightly faster than with the Merc grip. Not by a whole lot, but it is slightly faster. Since recoil is not really an issue, I would say that there is absolutely no reason to run the Merc grip over the XRK grip. The XRK has better aim down sights time, and it does have a slightly faster movement speed, so really it's the best grip to be using for this particular shotgun in my opinion, unless, like I said, you wanted to try using slugs or needed some extra stability for some reason, which again I highly advised against because you should be playing close quarters as much as possible, and if you are at medium range, typically the idle sway is not much of an issue given the nature of the shotgun and the spread and how it works. At long last, it's finally time. Let's talk about shotgun slugs on the Model 680 shotgun. I've been getting a ton of questions and comments about them, so now I figured it would be a good time to address them for this particular shotgun. If you are unaware, Slugs basically turn shotguns into more of a sniper rifle because instead of shooting traditional buckshot, which has a bunch of tiny pellets that spread, you fire a single chunk of lead. This means you have to be more accurate, but in theory, you should be rewarded with great one-shot kill potential and a longer one-shot kill range. While the Slugs do give you an increase in one-shot kill range, the catch is you must hit chest or higher. This may not sound like much of an issue to some, but in situations where you're dealing with a moving target, it is much easier said than done. The Slugs are zeroed in at about 30 meters in the game. What this means is past 30 meters, you have to compensate for bullet drop, which for the Slugs is pretty steep. At any distance longer than 30 meters, you're gonna need to aim higher than the target itself. The trick is, of course, to do it just so that it hits their chest or their head, which again is pretty hard on a moving target. Through my testing, the Slugs do increase one-shot kill ability, and depending on the barrel you choose, you get a better one-shot kill range than some of the others. The Sport has the longest, of course, with the other two trailing behind it. It seems that as long as you're hitting the chest or head with the Slug, it should be a one-shot kill always. So the Slugs sound great, but how do they play? Well, not great actually, which is strange. You think they'd be awesome, but through my playtime with them, I was, greeted with a lot of hit markers on people, even at close range. And because of the speed and travel time of the Slug, it often leads to some strange inconsistencies when using them, where you think you're on target, but you were really a little off apparently. In theory, the Slug should work really well, but as of now, I can't find a good reason to use the Slugs over traditional buckshot. The one-shot potential for standard buckshot is already impressive, and even though the Slugs give that a boost, the weird hit markers and strange inconsistencies that plague the Slug make it unreliable to use as a main attachment, competitively at least. They can be fun to mess around with and try something different, but as a whole, I do not recommend using Slugs on this weapon. Sadly, we do not have another KSG on our hands. The risk and reward for the Slugs with this particular shotgun are just way out of whack, and for the difficulty they bring with using them, the reward is not great. Man, we just went over a buttload of stats and attachments. We've seen some that work better than others, and some that encourage a slightly different playstyle. So now what I want to do is show you guys two classes you can use to make this gun a complete beast of a weapon. First, we'll start off with a class that's catered to long-range one-shot kills with ADS times that are slightly longer than normal. For this class, equip the Sport Long Barrel, the FSS Suppressor, the XRK Grip, add the no stock attachment, and then add the green hip laser. The sprint out for this time is of course going to be 167 milliseconds with an ADS speed of around 20 frames or 333 milliseconds. This class will help maximize your one-shot kill ranges at the expense of being slightly less agile and mobile, especially with your aim down sights time. Now for my go-to bread and butter class, this is the class that I run constantly with this gun. I have around 2,500 kills or so with this gun currently, and that's mainly thanks to this specific class. It keeps me quick and it keeps a respectable one-shot kill range. First, you're going to use the Liberator barrel, add the choke muzzle attachment, the green hip laser, no stock attachment, and the XRK grip. The sprint out time for this one is of course 167 milliseconds, but the ADS speed is around 16 frames or 266 milliseconds, which is a lot faster than the other class that I showed you. This, of course, is going to be a faster class, but you will be sacrificing a little bit of range overall. The difference is not that bad though, and for how you should be playing with this shotgun, I found this class to be the perfect setup for me. And believe me, you can still get some pretty amazing one-shot kills with this, and you can really catch a lot of people off guard. So this video has dragged on long enough, and I know you guys are probably tired of listening to me at this point, but if you stuck with me this far, thank you so much. But with that being said, I'm going to wrap this up now. The 680 is a solid shotgun. It's pretty standard. It's a pretty run-of-the-mill pump-action shotgun with a decent one-shot kill range that can catch some people off guard at times, and it is my personal favorite shotgun of the game. I have the most kills with it. Like I said, I have around 2,500. I really recommend you guys giving this gun a try. It's beautifully animated and it feels and sounds amazing. It's not the best shotgun, there's a few other shotguns that are better than this one, but it does function pretty well and you can still catch people off guard and take on some crowds with this bad boy. So with that being said, give my class a try. Let me know if you like this type of video. I can do more of these stat type oriented videos, and it took a lot of work to make. I haven't uploaded in a few days because this one is actually pretty in depth. So if you like this kind of content, leave a like and let me know, and I'll be sure to do one for every other shotgun as well. So with that being said, I will catch you guys in the next video.